The stage lights felt blinding as they flickered to life, washing the massive AGT theater in a glow that made every heartbeat sound louder than it should have been. Backstage, hidden behind thick black curtains, stood a small boy from Cebu, Philippines. His name was Elian Cruz, and he was so young that his feet barely touched the floor when he sat on the waiting chair. His hands trembled, not because he was scared of the judges, but because he carried something much heavier than nerves. He carried a dream born in a tiny house near the shoreline, where music was not a luxury but a lifeline. Elian had grown up listening to the ocean before he ever listened to a radio. The waves outside their home sang every night, sometimes gentle, sometimes furious, depending on the storm. His father used to say the sea had a voice of its own, and maybe that was where Elian learned that sound could carry emotion without words. When his father passed away after a long illness, the house became quieter, except for Elian's voice. He sang while doing homework, sang while helping his mother sell dried fish at the market, and sang softly at night so his younger sister could fall asleep. Singing wasn't something he practiced, it was something that happened to him. In Cebu, people often stopped to listen when Elian sang at small community gatherings. Some smiled in disbelief, others wiped away tears. That voice shouldn't come from a child, they would whisper. His tone carried a depth that felt lived in, like someone who had already walked through loss, hope, and longing. A local teacher recorded one of his performances on a cracked phone and shared it online. Within days, messages poured in. One of them came from a talent scout who believed that the world needed to hear this boy sing. Now, standing just steps away from one of the biggest stages in the world, Elian squeezed his mother's hand. She had never flown on a plane before this journey. She wore a simple dress and carried a quiet strength that came from years of sacrifice. "Just sing like you do at home," she whispered. "Sing like it's just us." Elian nodded, breathing slowly, reminding himself of the sea, the night breeze, and the small room where his dreams first learned to breathe. The host called his name, and the curtains opened. The audience saw a tiny figure walking confidently toward the center of the stage. There was a ripple of gentle laughter, not mocking, but surprised. He looked so young, so fragile under the massive lights. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, curiosity mixed with skepticism written plainly on his face. He had seen thousands of auditions. Children, especially young ones, rarely carried anything unexpected anymore. "Hello," the host said warmly. "What's your name?" "Elian Cruz," he replied, his voice soft, almost shy. "And how old are you, Elian?" "I'm 9 years old," he said, flashing a small smile. The audience reacted immediately. Murmurs spread like a breeze through the room. 9 was an age associated with playgrounds, cartoons, and scraped knees, not soul-stirring performances. "What are you going to sing for us today?" Simon asked, his tone polite but guarded. Elian swallowed, then lifted his chin. "I'm going to sing a song that reminds me of my father," he said. The room shifted. Something about the way he spoke, calm, grounded, made people lean forward. The music began, slow and minimal, a gentle piano filling the space. Elian closed his eyes, and for a split second, he wasn't on the AGT stage anymore. He was back in Cebu, listening to waves crash against the shore. When he opened his mouth to sing, the world seemed to pause. The first note was rich, controlled, and impossibly deep for someone his age. It didn't just reach the audience, it wrapped around them. Gasps echoed through the theater. Simon's eyebrows shot up instantly, his body leaning forward as if pulled by an invisible string. Heidi's mouth fell open. Sophia placed a hand over her heart. Howie blinked, stunned, as if trying to confirm that what he was hearing was real. Elian's voice carried a texture that most singers only find after decades of living. It was warm and aching, with a slight rasp that added honesty rather than imperfection. Each lyric felt intentional, like a confession whispered into a trusted ear. He didn't sing loudly to impress, he sang truthfully, and the truth rang louder than any high note ever could. As the song progressed, the audience forgot they were watching a competition. Some people closed their eyes. Others clutched the hands of strangers beside them. Tears rolled freely, unashamed. This wasn't just talent, it was storytelling through sound. Elian's small frame stood perfectly still, yet his voice traveled everywhere, filling every corner of the theater. Halfway through the performance, Simon Cowell did something rare. He uncrossed his arms. His expression softened, replaced by something close to disbelief. He wasn't analyzing technique anymore. He was listening like everyone else, completely unguarded. Elian reached the final chorus, and something changed. His voice lifted, not in volume, but in emotion. It felt like hope breaking through sadness, like a sunrise after a long, restless night. The final note lingered in the air long after the music stopped, trembling softly before fading into silence. For a moment, there was no reaction at all. Then the theater exploded. The audience leapt to their feet in a standing ovation so powerful it seemed to shake the floor. Cheers, applause, and cries filled the room. Elian opened his eyes, startled by the noise. He hadn't expected this. He had only sung the way he always did. Simon stood up slowly, clapping harder than anyone else. His face showed pure shock mixed with admiration. When the applause finally settled, Elian wiped his eyes, overwhelmed but smiling. "That was," Simon began, then stopped, searching for words. "I don't know how you do that. You are 9 years old, and you just sounded like someone who has lived an entire lifetime through music." Elian listened quietly, his hands clasped together. "I've heard thousands of singers," Simon continued. "And I can honestly say I was not prepared for what came out of you. That voice, it's not just good. It's rare." Heidi leaned forward, her eyes shining. "You made me forget where I was," she said. "I felt every word. You're so young, but you sang with so much heart." Sophia nodded. "There are adults who train for years and never touch that level of emotion. You didn't perform. You shared something personal, and that is very special." Howie smiled gently. "You remind us why we love this show," he said. "Moments like this don't happen often." Elian glanced toward his mother in the wings. She was crying openly now, her hands covering her mouth. For years, she had worried about how to give her children a better future. In that moment, she realized her son's voice might carry them farther than she ever dreamed. Simon took a deep breath. "Elian," he said, his voice serious, "you are too young to sound like that. And yet, here you are, shocking all of us. You didn't just audition, you made a statement." He paused, letting the tension build. The audience leaned forward again, hearts racing. "I want the world to hear more of you," Simon said firmly. "You deserve to be on this stage." 4 glowing yeses appeared on the screen. Elian's face lit up with pure joy. He covered his mouth in disbelief, then bowed shyly as the crowd erupted once more. Confetti fell, and the moment became one of those rare television memories that people would replay again and again. Backstage, as Elian hugged his mother, he whispered, "I sang like at home." She smiled through tears. "Yes," she said, and the whole world listened. That night, clips of Elian's performance spread across the internet like wildfire. Millions watched in disbelief, sharing comments filled with wonder. "How is this possible?" people asked. "That voice has an old soul." Cebu celebrated their young hero, proud of the boy who carried their stories onto a global stage. But for Elian, nothing had changed inside. He was still the boy who sang to the sea, who believed that music could heal and connect. The AGT stage had given him a spotlight, but his true power had always been there, waiting quietly, patiently, until the right moment to be heard. And as the world continued to replay that unforgettable audition, one thing became clear: age had nothing to do with greatness. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the deepest echoes.